Hello and welcome to another video. Today is, or maybe today, I don't know when I'm posting this live, on Monday the 8th of March 2021, it is International Women's Day, which is a big celebration of women. There's so many different things happening and I thought I wanted to contribute. So what I thought I would do is give you a tour of this shelf specifically, of my bookshelf, and just go through all the books on the shelf because these are all my feminist lit / over here is a film section, but we're just gonna ignore these four at the end and just go for all of these ones because I've been asked a couple of times about the non-fiction that I would recommend. So non-fiction is also up here, but today we're going to focus on the feminist shelf, so that's why I'm in a different filming setup. Hello, Editing Beth coming in here to apologise for how overexposed I am throughout this video. You'd have thought that on day one of film degree they would have taught me not to stand in front of a white background with a white t-shirt holding up white books in front of a very, very bright window. Well, I mean, they did teach me that, I just completely forgot it, clearly. I could not tell how bright this was within the camera viewfinder, so I'm really sorry, and I didn't have time to refilm it because it took me a long time to film this. But nevertheless, the content's still really good, I hope, and the recommendations still sound, so I hope you enjoy it despite the fact that I am very, very, very overexposed. There's lots of different books here. Actually, one of them is a fiction, but we'll still mention that one anyway. But there's loads of different books. I don't think any are by the same author, actually. They're all different authors, all different types of feminist non-fiction, and one apparently feminist fiction, and one biographical book. Not autobiographical though, no, biographical book. So let's just jump in. I'm going to start at the end of the shelf and move over to this side. The first book on the shelf is one I'm pretty sure you'll probably have heard of by now, and this is Goodnight Stories for Rebel Girls. This is jam-packed with stories about amazing women throughout history with beautiful illustrations. All the illustrations are different. So for example, I've just flipped to this one. We have Catherine the Great, so that's her illustration, and then every single page we see someone different. The illustrations, it's beautiful. Like this, for example, this one's sketched, whereas this one is this amazing little op art almost. I love this so much. This is genuinely fantastic bedtime reading because you can so easily read a couple of these stories each night, or you can read them to a child, either or. It says it's for rebel girls, but I think this is for anyone that wants to learn these stories. I think there's multiple books out within this collection now as well. Definitely not just for children though, this is absolutely suitable for anybody. Then I have got Germaine Greer's The Whole Woman. This is a very old copy of this book. I think this is from the 90s. Germaine Greer is quite well known for her feminist writing. This is a book she said she would never write because she didn't want to get so angry again, but she did write it, and it is about the mind, the body, power and love, and just generally circulates around the feminist movement and talks about each different attributes of those things within, like, so basically, for example, the body section, hang on, let me find the contents page. The body section covers beauty, man-made women, man-made mothers, abortion, mutilations, our bodies, ourselves, breasts, food, all sorts of things that it looks at examining the way that these things are represented, I assume within the media and within general society, and how that contributes towards feminism and things as well, and how women are sexualized with these things as well, which is, I think, an argument that is just going to be ongoing forever. But yeah, I haven't read this one yet because I only got this one quite recently, but I know that Germaine Greer is highly studied within feminism, so I'm definitely interested to see what she has to say within this book. Then I have got Hood Feminism by Miki Kendall, and underneath the title it reads Notes from the Women White Feminists Forgot. And apparently this is one that everyone should read. Again, I only got this one I think last month, so I haven't read this one yet because I'm trying to read maybe one non-fiction to two a month because non-fiction is not something I used to read a lot of before. I'm trying to expand it a lot more, so trying to get into one or two a month if I can. Side note, because it kind of goes alongside it I suppose, but I'm currently listening to one of those non-fictions, which is Disfigured, which is basically talking about fairy tales and how the incorporation of disfiguration is within the villains, and that is not fair representation for people that want to see themselves as the prince or the princess or any character that isn't a villain. It's really interesting, and it does actually cover elements of feminism too, so that is a really good one. I don't have a physical copy of that yet. Anyway, this one though, this is Hood Feminism, as I said. So this basically looks at how feminism is more than just an issue with gender, and you need to look at class, you need to look at sexuality, you need to look at race, and all these things contributing towards it as well as a whole. So this is been credited as a book that everybody should read. It's not too long, so it really is something that everyone has the capacity to be able to read, hopefully. But I think this is one I'm going to try and get to really soon. I might do it in chunks because, again, I go to the contents page to break down what it is, but each section is about 15 to 20 pages, but we cover things like gun violence, hunger, It's Raining Patriarchy, How to Write About Black Women, Pretty Foray, ... So many different topics covered: fear and feminism, race, poverty, politics, housing, education. There's so much covered in this, and I think this is a really vital one to read to just expand the knowledge of what feminism is, because feminism needs to be as inclusive as it says it is. We can't just say feminism and then not be inclusive of certain different sectors that aren't being included within the terms when people think about feminism on a day-to-day basis. So this book is helping us to be as absolutely inclusive as possible and just expand our knowledge about that. Next up, I have got The Height Report by Sherry or Cher, I'm not sure, Height. This is one that my mum gave me many years ago. It is a very old, bashed about copy, but it looks really interesting, and I think throughout the years I've kind of flipped through it and looked at little bits, but this is an interview-based book. On the back it says 3,500 women between the ages of 14 and 78 describe their most intimate feelings and answers to such questions as: how does an orgasm feel? Do you enjoy masturbation? How do you masturbate? Is your partner or are your partners well informed about your sexual desires and your body? Do you ever feel pressure to have sex? How do you handle it? This is basically a massive interview of so many different women to contribute towards quite a chunky book that talks openly and honestly about sex. So I'm all for sex positivity books, as I've said many times before on this channel, and this one is definitely one that I think highlights how we can be open and talk about sex, and how we all have different views, but also some people are going to think that they're alone in things and they're not, and I think this is a really good book to demonstrate that. Then we have a biography. This is Sophia by Anita Anand, and I'm going to read you the blurb, top line of the blurb of this, because I think there's so much information that attempting to remember it off the top of my head is not going to do it justice. So, in 1876, Sophia Duleep Singh was born into Indian royalty. That is her. Daughter of Maharaja Duleep Singh and goddaughter of Queen Victoria, she was raised as an aristocrat Englishwoman in wealth, fashion and favour. But when in secret defiance of the British government she travelled to India, she returned a revolutionary. I have read a bit of this one. I feel like the theme is that I've read bits of them because I tend to dive into non-fiction and read a little bit and then read a bit later. But this is basically her story told by Anita Anand. She's a princess, a suffragette, a revolutionary. This is listed with amazing reviews saying how remarkable and brilliant it is. My mum actually bought me this one, well, about 2 years ago I think now, because she thought I would really enjoy to read this story, because Sophia isn't someone that I have heard of before. I don't know if you guys have or not, but this definitely looks really interesting if you're interested in biographies. I really enjoy reading autobiographies. I don't think I've read any biographies before, so this will be an interesting reading experience for me as well. Then we have got what I think might be the first book I owned of my feminist collection, and my mum bought this for me many years ago. I think maybe I was about 14 or 15. This is Living Dolls: The Return of Sexism by Natasha Walter. This is quite a short book. I absolutely love the cover, but this basically talks about how women's bodies are perceived, how we're seen in the media, how women are sexualized. I suppose a bit similar to how I was talking about The Whole Woman, but maybe more, well, this is quite a lot shorter, so I think it might be a bit less intimidating to read personally. Again, we shall go to the contents page. So the contents page covers various different headings under the new sexism, the new determinism, oh that's it, 2 headings, and then lots of things underneath them. So under the new sexism we've got babes, pole dancers and prostitutes, girls, lovers, pornography and choices, and then under the new determinism we've got princesses, myths, and then under that there's loads of other things, stereotypes and changes. Again, this is one that I think I probably read about half of this as a teenager. I can't remember masses from this, so it's probably time for a reread, but I definitely read a good chunk of it because I was really obsessed with that kind of thing as my body was changing from a child to a teen as well at that point. So this one's really interesting, and it's not specifically written for children or anything, I don't think, but if you've got a younger reader that wants to explore this kind of thing, then this would be suitable for them, because I definitely read it at a younger age myself. Rudely enough, my camera battery is flashing, which I thought was fully charged, so hang on. The camera angle is probably going to change now. Okay, apologies, the camera angle's probably changed, but we're good. Battery in. Anyway, the next book is Sex Positive by Dr. Kelly Neth. This is a book about redefining our attitudes towards love and sex. It's pretty much what it says on the cover. It's a book about sex positivity. I cannot stress how important I think it is to be sex positive and to make society sex positive and to stop saying things are dirty and shaming them. I think that there's certainly limits as to what we should talk about in public or in work and things like that because of our own privacy of our bodies and things, but I think to shame sex and to be saying it's taboo and to be shy and embarrassed by it is just something that I would love to see slowly or fast eradicated, preferably quicker actually, but I think to try and be more realistic, I think this is so important and it's something that I've been really being quite vocal about recently. So this is a book that I bought a couple of weeks ago as something to just read to further my knowledge. Again, one of the ones that I'm adding to my ever-growing list of non-fiction to read to just educate myself a little bit further. Then we have got The Vagina Monologues by Ensler. This is a book that I read last month, so I've spoken about it quite a lot recently on my channel, so you may have heard me talk about this one before. This is a series of interviews, again another interview-based book, of over 200 women talking about their own experiences. It does talk about some women's experiences of sexual assault and rape as well, so there's a varying different degree of spectrum of different cultures, different experiences, not all good, not all bad. There's a lot in this book. I think it's really interestingly done. The format is really varied, so you've got poetic almost stories and interviews, and then just normal, almost fictional written. I know that they're not fiction, but in that kind of style of writing, and it's just really interesting to read. This is the 20th anniversary edition, which has a couple of extra bits of content in, which also just add to this book being really interesting, but also very empowering. I think this is a really empowering book for the word vagina and for owning that word, which is what Eve Ensler says she wants to set out to achieve at the start of this book. Next up is Herland by Charlotte Perkins Gilman. This is a fiction. So this one I added to the list recently because I wanted to read more fiction around the topic of feminism. Topic, genre, theme, the message and theme of feminism. And this one was recommended to me as a classic that I had to read. It's basically about a group of women who have formed a civilization away from men. There are no men, they've completely got it going on their own, they've even managed to be able to procreate without men. And then of course some men rock up. And it's about how that happens, and I think that shit goes down probably, and it's not the best experience, and I don't know what happens, because again, I basically got a lot of these last month because I suddenly went on a huge feminist book buying extravaganza, and this is one of the ones I got. This is actually 2 books in one, so really it's very, very small, and it's apparently humorous. I don't know if it is humorous because I've come across a lot of books recently that have said they're humorous by reviewers on the blurb and they're not, so I'm going to take that with a pinch of salt. But I'm excited to get to it. Next up, a series of essays by Mary Beard, which is called Women and Power. This is the updated version, which I think has more modern references in it, because there's a couple of political references and things that I think might have been updated. There's a couple of essays in this, and it basically looks at women throughout time and power. So it looks at old ancient Greek stories, it looks at modern political situations and how women are depicted in the media, and even how people like Medusa are depicted in the media now, for example. So it's really interesting. I really enjoyed this, and this kind of kick-started me going on this massive book buying extravaganza of all these feminism books, because Mary Beard's writing really compelled me to want to learn a lot more. Then we have got this absolutely beautiful book, Strange Antics by Clement Knox. This is a history of seduction. It's very chunky. I have got about 30 or so pages into this, and it's not the lightest in the world, so I would say that if you're going to go into this, go into it expecting it to be a heavy textbook almost. This is literally, as it says, a history of seduction, so it's not overtly strictly just a feminist book. This is also talking about sex and sex throughout the ages and seduction throughout the ages, so it is of course going to include elements of feminism in it and how women have been represented throughout time within the reference to seduction. I'm interested to see how it talks about when we get to an age of the fact that women are told they're asking for it if they're wearing a short skirt, because that just enrages me, and so many other people too. It's a very one that makes us mad, because you can wear what you want and not be asking for anything other than to feel confident in your own outfit. But anyway, this is, apart from being stunning, very highly regarded, and I think it's really interesting so far. It's got a nice way of kind of telling you the story that is fictional in its kind of narration as a story, but it's non-fiction in the fact that it's real. Again, it's a really good way of crafting information and teaching you in a way that doesn't feel like you're being taught. And finally, this chunky hardback. This is the Feminist book, and this is forwarded by Lucy Mangan, but I think it's generally collected and put together by DK. This basically looks at feminism throughout time in infographic styles. I love these kind of books. I've got a couple of them here that are like more film-based ones. So there's all different information throughout the years, there's different movements covered. I love the format of this book because I think the way it tells you the information is really easy to absorb. There's pictures, there's graphics. It doesn't feel, again, like you're sitting and reading a textbook or anything. Each bit is divvied up into different parts and different waves of feminism, but also different parts throughout history as well. Generally, this is a really easy one to dive into if you want to learn about a specific part of history to do with feminism and you're not quite sure where you want to start. This is a good overview of each part throughout history to contribute towards the massive movement that we've got going today. I just found one more. It was on the history shelf because it kind of is history as well, but this is 100 Nasty Women of History by Hannah Jewell. So it's kind of, I never know where to put this one, but the bottom line says, brilliant, badass and completely fearless women everyone should know. So again, it's kind of like the Goodnight Stories for Rebel Girls, and also kind of combines elements of this one here because it talks about women throughout history and gives us a timeline, but the way it breaks down in the contents page I love. So we've got each section throughout history and they're titled as Wonderful Ancient Weirdos, Women in Impressive Kill Counts, Women Who Were Geniuses, Women Who Wrote Dangerous Things, Women Who Wore Trousers and Enjoyed Terrifying Hobbies, Women Who Fought Empires and Racists, Women who knew how to have a good ass time, Women Who Punched Nazis, metaphorically but also not, Your Revolutionary Role Models. I love this, and they're really short sections on each woman as well, so this is really easy again to just dive into. So those are my books on feminism. I haven't read every single one of these, and I have tried to do my research when I buy them to get books that I think are well regarded within the feminism literature world. I don't know what the right wording to say here is, but I've tried to buy books that I believe are contributing positively and truthfully and honestly and are not being slandered or anything, so hopefully this is a good selection. But again, until I've read them, absolutely all of them, I can't comment on each one individually, so please bear in mind, haven't read them all, slowly making my way through them, but as mainly a fiction reader, I do read non-fiction a lot slower and I don't pick it up quite as often, but I'm hoping to get to all of these, and I think the beauty of these is that you can just dip in and out of them and just learn little bits, and I think I've got quite an array of books here, so I can try and educate myself as much as possible to learn from across the board. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. I feel like I'm gradually becoming more and more overexposed because I'm stood by a window, but hey ho. It's a different filming setup because I wanted to be able to show you the shelves. If you would like to see more of my non-fiction, I do have another shelf here so I can go through my more historical non-fiction / geographical, I don't really know, but we can go through that too if you would like. Let me know down below. Do give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Give me any recommendations in the comments of non-fiction or fiction. I'm always up for reading fictional kick-ass feminist storylines. I love those kind of storylines very much. And subscribe to see more of my face on your feed, and also you can join my Patreon family if you would like even more content from me at all hours of the day. Thank you guys so much for watching. Keep smiling and stay positive.